Hi everyone, let's talk about Iberian Rails, which as I said is on Kickstarter, and the link should be somewhere if you want to check out the campaign. So let's start off with the concept behind the game. I really like the idea of players don't take turns, the companies take turns, and there's this separation between it's your money and there's personal money and the company's money. And if money doesn't go into the company, you can't do anything. But to get money into the company, usually, you're going to have to hold auctions, which puts yourself up to risk and other people being able to take control of your company, and you lose turns, you lose control over what's going on in these companies. I do think sometimes if, like, the nephew was probably used too much in that game, and if people can just get shares for free and keep getting payouts, then there's not as much incentive to have these auctions. So I'd, it entirely depends on the combination of the cards that come out at the start of the game. They're the cards that you pick. You get given these groups, shuffle between them and pick two out of these certain groups. So the game is going to change up based on the CEOs that are out and available to use each round, because you can't use them 2 rounds in a row. Normally, unless everybody's using the nephew more than they should, normally the companies will run out of money very, very quickly. You're going to have to hold some kind of auction, and the auction is, unless you've played quite well for yourself, the auction is probably not going to go in your favour as the owner of the company. If you end up with a lot of shares at the end, though, it doesn't matter as much owning the company, because the share value's already been increased. Like, if Marty had lost control of Blue at that point in the playthrough, it wouldn't have mattered so much. He'd already built it all around his hotels anyway. He'd already done that. He'd already put the share value up, and he already had a lot of shares. So he wouldn't really have cared that much if he'd lost control of it at that point. So yeah, I think the game does a really good job of, making you spend that money, which is also different based on the CEO that you pick, but forcing you to make these decisions between the auctions that you hold. If you really personally need money and you don't particularly care if you lose control of a company, then you could do the closed auction where everyone makes a secret bid. The bids are obviously going to be a lot smaller in that, because the money is going to you, the CEO. So people don't want to give you personally the money, so the bids are probably going to be smaller. But then on the other hand, maybe you can win and get more shares for your company and then get a payout and then get some money that way. It's really the 3 things that you can do on your turn really work nicely together. So on the downside, as a 2-player game, as you might have noticed in the playthrough, or just the concept of the game in general, due to the auctions and controlling these companies and things, it doesn't work very well with 2. It would work far better with more players. It goes from 2 to 5, and with 5 players, that would be a real wrestle between these companies, because there are always 6 companies in the game, no matter how many players you have. And maybe, to be better with 2 players, you'd need fewer companies and maybe a smaller area of the map to fight over. But then that would, I don't know how you would implement that, because the companies all have particular share values and things. So it's not something that you could just cut off and then play without them. And I'm sure there's it's been balanced to have these number of companies in. So everything really, from the picking of the character cards, because in a 2-player game you can just keep cycling the same characters, because there's only going to be 1 round where you're not allowed to use it, and if the other person takes it, then you can take it the next round. And we found it kind of goes around like that, whereas in a game with more players, there's no way that could happen. There would be far more options available. Your favorite option would probably usually be taken, and it would change up the game a lot based on the powers that you can have, because that changes the auctions that you can participate in, the cost of the rails that you can buy, as well as the power of the character itself and the position it gives you to be able to pick your character next turn. The auctions would be far more interesting with more people making these bids, throwing a lot more chaos into the closed auctions as well, because how can you predict what 5 people are going to do when you initiate these auctions? And also, if the shares or the number of shares stays the same for each company as well, so yellow has 3, red has 4, brown has 6, those getting spread out in a 5-player game is really going to be different. As in the 2-player games, it's once somebody's kind of got a little bit of an edge on a company, it's very hard to wrestle it away from them, whereas they probably wouldn't get that edge in a game with more players. Also, as you might imagine in a game like this, a train game like this, it's far better as well if you're going to play it really cutthroat and try and cut people off, because although you can go in, you can force people to go into places that you've already gone into, you can cut them off like that. They can just pay, although they have to pay your company, which is a downside. They have to pay your company, but they can go past your little roadblock. But if you ended up in a situation like Marty did here, where he controlled, what was it, the green and the grey, he could have built this around in a complete roadblock from you, because you can't have more than 2 companies in an area. So really, if he wanted to be a little bit more mean about it, he probably could have frozen my yellow company out somehow. So that's probably improves the game as well, playing it in a more cutthroat fashion. So that is Iberian Rails. As I said, it's on Kickstarter right now. Really like the idea behind the game, and if you are playing with more than 2 people, then I imagine that this is going to be a crazy, you know, the chaos-ridden game of, you know, having control of a company one round, losing it the next, trying to get a power to wrestle it back, or maybe you set your sights on another company, you set your hotels around a company that you think you're going to take control of. I reckon the not necessarily chaotic, but the crazy nature of having more players in the same size map and with the same number of companies would, you know, make it really, really fun. So that was Iberian Rails. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.